Welcome to Introduction to Game Development. This is Computer Science 303 at Missouri State University. My name is Matthew, and I'll be showing you how to use UDK. As always, I'll preface my tutorial with a disclaimer that I am not an expert. To begin with, let's go ahead and get a copy of our latest map. So this is Lab 12. Copy it. Going to our Maps folder in the Content directory, we'll go ahead and copy and replace it. And let's go ahead and load our editor now. Today we'll be learning a little bit more about how to refine our bot's AI a little bit, and we'll learn about how to create Kismet sequences, and we'll introduce you to how we might also use different animations for our pawns. And if you followed our last tutorial, loading up our map here, and I'll close this and close this. Now if we play in the editor window, we land at our player start, hit our jump point, reach the roof, and now we're going to approach our elevator here. We hit the button, come down, hit the triggered event, out comes the guy, he starts shooting at us right away, and as soon as he was behind the bunker there, he had an obstructed line of sight, and he stopped shooting at us. And now if I were to shoot him, he has the potential to move to another location. There he goes. And notice he established line of sight there again and started shooting. And now just to remind you how we created all of this, let's go back to our Kismet sequence, and I've organized it a little bit more neatly so that you can see exactly what we're doing here. And so I've broken it up into 5 different sections. This is where we spawn the bot, and then we have this section which handles all of his firing, this section which handles all of his movement, and then we have these 2 events that might occur whenever the bot takes damage and whenever the bot dies. And just to walk you through the process, we have the 2 trigger volumes positioned at the 2 entrances where the elevator enters the room. And then as soon as we touch either of these volumes, it will go into the spawn actor node on this actor factory. Just to look again at its properties, we have it set up so that whenever the bot spawns, it will not have a deathmatch AI forced on it. It has a UT pawn set as its pawn class, and we gave it a default inventory as well. And then it will also use this path node that we selected behind the corner for its spawn point, and the object that it spawns, specifically the bot, is going to be this variable right here. And now also whenever it finishes spawning, it kicks off 3 different sequences here. One being to go ahead and establish the trace, which is why it started firing at us as he was running. And as it goes into this trace here, it will go ahead and create the vector starting from the bot that our actor factory spat out, and it will end at our player variable right here. And remember, on your trace you want to definitely set that so that we have so that we have nodes connecting from the not obstructed and the obstructed. So whenever you have a not obstructed line of sight, it will start firing. That is to say, the target, when it says target, that means who do you want to start firing? That's the bot. And who do you want to fire at? That's the player. As soon as it starts firing, it will do a delay of 2 seconds, so it will continue firing for 2 seconds. And then it will stop firing, and then it will go to this delay of 1 second, and then restart the trace. And if the line of sight is obstructed, it will go ahead and stop firing, wait for 1 second, and reestablish the trace again. And if you didn't have something connected from your obstructed line here, then you might have had problems where it would shoot at you when it first had line of sight, but if it lost line of sight and then it regained it, it wouldn't start firing again. So you want to make sure that the obstructed is definitely getting looped back to the beginning of the trace at some point. And then in our movement section here, we have this access object list node here. And we created this object list, and we selected a number of path nodes and added them in there. And so whenever the actor factory spawns the bot, it will go over here, it will pick a waypoint from our object list randomly. So it's selecting a random index for one of our path nodes, and it's going to output that object as this destination path node that we created here. And then as soon as it's selected one and it's established this variable, it will go out to this move actor, or move to actor rather, and its destination will be that destination path node. The target will be the bot, and we want him to look at the player whenever he's traveling. And then as soon as it finishes, it makes go ahead and ensure the it makes sure and goes ahead and restarts the trace. And then it also will attach to this event here, where as soon as the enemy takes damage now, it will go ahead and go back, choose a new waypoint randomly, potentially the same one he's standing at, and begin again with a new move to actor. And then also, you don't necessarily have to have this section in here, but it's useful for testing. As soon as the pawn dies, it will send an event back to the actor factory, and it will spawn a new actor. So essentially a continual respawn. And now I'm going to bring my properties window down just a little bit here so I can get a little more real estate on the screen. And I'll back out a little bit. So here is our full Kismet sequence, and I'll leave it here for just a moment so you can make sure you have everything connected properly. And I'll freeze the video here while we're in the lab, and you can freeze it at home if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you have it set up this way, then you should be all caught up. And this sequence provides a good AI base for a bot. The bot moves between covers when damaged and shoots at the player when it has a clear line of sight. But you'll notice also whenever we were hiding behind that bunker wall, even though we could see the enemy's head and we were standing up, so theoretically there should have been a line of sight, he was not firing at us. And this is an aspect of our trace here, one of the properties that we can adjust. So bringing back my property window so we can see all of its properties, when you have the trace node selected, if you go under the sequence action trace, we have this end offset submenu. Go ahead and select that to expand its options. And then under Z, you might need to play with these values here a little bit. I know with the static mesh that I used for my bunker wall, that if I set this Z value to 30, then it should be able to see over that wall finally. If you use a different static mesh, you might need to try around with different numbers. Somewhere probably between 20 and 50 though. And to show you the effect of how we've changed that now, if I go ahead and play in the editor, I'll hit my jump point, land on the roof, come to our elevator, come down, we'll hit the trigger volume, he'll come out, he'll start shooting. Oop. Okay. So he can't quite see us, but almost. We might need to adjust that value just a little bit more. And so looking at it, we have that value of 30, which worked in my previous test, but let's go ahead and set that to 50. And now to show you how it works, we'll come in, jump to the roof, come up to our elevator, come down. You might need to adjust those values yourself too. And so there we go. So now he's trying to see me over that top there, and now he sees me. There we go. So you might need to adjust those values a little bit depending on which static mesh you're using. But that does give us a little bit of options now, so he's going to actually try and flush us out whenever he actually sees us hiding behind there, or we'll have to crouch to actually avoid being shot. Now, something I'd like to show you also, and something that Dr. Shaded mentioned that he'd like to see included, is how we can create sequences in Kismet. Now, a sequence, these are useful for two reasons. They can be saved and reused at will, and they save a lot of space in the Kismet window, allowing a better visual organization of the sequences. And to do this, essentially you can see there's a number of different sequences possible in this window down here. But before we set up another sequence, we need to generalize some of our variables. in order to make a variable general, you can see the number of variables that we're using here. We have this bot, we have the player, and we also have this destination path node that's being spat out here. And to generalize a sequence, we change these variables representing specific game objects with general variables that could be linked to any game object in any project you may work on. These variables are called external variables. To create one, you right-click, choose New Variable, and External Variable. Our first external variable represents the bot. Once created, we want to go ahead and make sure it connects to all of the same nodes that the original bot variable was connected to. And so we need to connect this to the stop target, or the stop firing target, and then also this is the target for the start firing at, so we'll connect that there. And we have the trace, which is going to be the start here, and our move to actor, it's also the target there. Our attach to event for when it takes damage, that'll be our attachee. We'll connect that in there. And our death here, our attachee, will also be the bot. Now there's no need to connect the external variable to the actor factory because the factory won't be included in the sequence. The sequence only takes care of the behavior of the bot once it's spawned. So we can use this set of behavior for any kind of actor factory spawning any kind of bots we want. And I'll go ahead and delete our bot variable now that we have the external object representing it. And now for our player, move it out of the way here so we can see our lines a little bit better, and go ahead and right click, New Variable, External Variable. This one will represent our player. We want it connected to the same nodes that our player variable was connected to earlier. And so that's going to go to our trace end, and we're going to have that also going to the start firing at on the fire at there. And then the move to actor, we want it to look at our new player variable. And since these don't really have any distinguishing names inside their variables here, we'll go ahead and make little object comments for these. So this first one was our bot, and you can see bot shows up right above there, and then the other one was our player. So we'll put that as the object comment there. Oh, and I see one of our connections did not go from the start firing at to our new player, so let's go ahead and get rid of our old player variable. There we go. Now start firing at. There we go. So now it connects to our new player variable. And we'll also need one other object here to represent our object list, our path nodes that the object list is selecting from, the access object list node. So another variable, external variable, and it will stand in that place. So I'll go ahead and disconnect this one. And now we'll do this object list connection to our new external variable there. I'll go ahead and delete this possible waypoints object list for now, or just move it over to the side for now actually. There we go, and I just dragged it over to the side a little bit. Okay. And finally, we should also go ahead and put a comment name here as well. And we'll call this the, let's call this the path node list. Now just beyond also our comments, we need to establish these variable names. So we'll do the same thing here. So under the second option here, so select your bot variable, or new external object here. And with that selected, in the second submenu here, there's the variable name. We want to set that here. You can name them whatever you want, but this is what's going to allow us to actually work with them later. So you want it to be a name that you can remember. So there's the player, and then our path node list. This is the variable name field. Node list. Now the job is almost done. We need to detach our actor factory. So we have this going here, and hit shift and click. There we go. So we've detached our actor factory here. Oh, and also from our death event of the pawn, let's go ahead and get rid of that for now as well. And now, over here on the side, do a new event, and this is a sequence activated event. This is what we want to use here. And from the out here, let's go ahead and connect this to the in on our trace, and the random on our access object list. And we'll just leave it with those two connections for now. And the sequence is now complete and ready to be saved for future utilization. So you want to select all of the nodes that we want to include in our sequence here. And you can do this with the Control Alt and drag to marquee select a number of objects in Kismet here at once. I'm going to pause the video here real quick while I select them manually while my hotkeys are not working while I record. In just one moment. And now, so you can see exactly what I've selected here, I disconnected from the depth here. I disconnected the attachee from our external variable here, acting, so we don't have to mess with it for now. But I've selected this sequence activated in. Then we have the all of the stuff in the firing section, all of the stuff in the moving section, including the variable for our destination path node that it's generating, and our take damage event, and then also our external objects over here. And now right-click on any of your objects, and you'll see Create New Sequence. Go ahead and select that. And we can call it whatever we want, but we'll just leave it as the name subsequence for now. And so, when we look at our Kismet now, everything that we just tied together into that sequence has been bundled into this node here, subsequence. And so all of that complicated mess that we had in our Kismet earlier is now inside our subsequence here, which is off on its own in a separate section. And so now looking at our setup here. Oh, and I guess our setting the variable name earlier did not set these properly. Normally we need to be able to identify these variables here. So it must be the variable label I was looking at earlier. So let's go ahead and change that now. Going back to our subsequence, and each of our variables here, see default variable. So this is the bot. We'll change the name there for the label. And for our player, we have the player itself. And then back to our path node list. The default variable, we'll change that to node list. There we go. So not just the variable name, but also the variable label in the first section of the properties for each of your external variables. Enter. And now if we go back to our original sequence, we can see each of our variables now has a connector on our subsequence node. And something that's useful now that we actually have this subsequence created, if we right click on it, you can see one of the options here is export sequence to package. This will allow you to, basically if you make Kismet for one level and you have it set up in a sequence, then you can export that sequence to another package for another level, so you never have to make that Kismet sequence again. And so with this sequence containing everything we need for moving and shooting, if you just want to use the sequence again, you can export the sequence to the new package for the new level that you're working on. And so now we need to create some more specific variables that we can connect into these inputs for the external variables. So the object it spawns, we'll go ahead and create a new object variable. And that's our bot, so we'll connect that all the way over here to our bot input. And our finish, whenever it spawns the bot, it needs to actually start the sequence, right? And then as well, if you remember we had our possible waypoints, I've moved it out to the side from earlier. And we can go ahead and connect that to our node list. And then also we're going to need a new player variable. So new variable player. And remember, we want to set this to be just player 1, or player 0 I should say. So that's connected, and we'll connect this to the player. And for the purposes of testing, notice remember we disconnect everything from this death attached to event. So we want to go ahead and have that connected to our finished again like we had before. You didn't necessarily have to disconnect everything from death and reconnect it. It was just I wasn't sure if I was going to include it in our sequence or not. And then whenever a death occurs, it needs to respawn an actor. And so each time it spawns that actor, it will reattach that event to the new bot and restart the sequence, or subsequence that we created earlier. And so now that everything is set up, let's go ahead and test our new subsequence. So you can see our full Kismet here for that spawned bot. It's just what we had before to spawn it. Our attached to event, we have our possible waypoint still over here, which we've connected to our new subsequence. And here we go. Play in the editor. We're going to come over here, hop up, make it to the elevator, hit the button, coming down, hit the event. You can see attached to event sequence action. There we go. And so now, here we go. Works just like we had before. Only this time our Kismet is much more readable. Now we can try and improve his behavior just a little bit more also. So going back to our subsequence. Here we go. Okay. And so right now, if he is obstructed from line of sight, he just stops firing and waits for you to shoot him before he might move on. So let's make it so that if he's obstructed, he goes ahead and moves to one of those locations again. This way he'll essentially continue moving between the different points randomly until he has line of sight, and then he'll continue shooting from those positions. So first we're going to need another stop firing. So action AI stop firing. And I know it seems silly to have an extra stop firing, but we're going to want this one in a different sequence and not necessarily always out to that same delay, which goes back to the original trace. So we get that stop firing node, and we'll do another delay. So new action miscellaneous delay, and then also a new trace. That's new action, miscellaneous, and the last one there is trace. And so currently with the first trace, if it's obstructed, it just goes directly to the stop firing and then to the delay and back to the original trace again. Let's go ahead and disconnect this connection from the obstructed to the original stop firing node. And instead, obstructed will go to our new stop firing node. And then whenever he stops firing, it will go to the delay. And whenever it finishes the delay, it will go to the new trace. And we're also going to need to connect our objects here. So the one who should stop firing is the bot. And let's see here. And the trace is still from the bot and ending on the player. And if it's not obstructed, we'll have it go back to our original start firing node. And if it is obstructed, now we're going to have it go instead to our access object list and have it choose a new waypoint to go to. And so now let's test our new expanded subsequence here. So play in the editor, we hop up to the roof, come up to the elevator here, smack the button, down we come, hit the event, subsequence activated, here he comes, and oh, here he sees me, and now I'm going to try and find some cover. I hit duck, and oh, so we got him to actually break the line of sight first. So now he doesn't see us, and here he comes. So he realized he couldn't see us, so now he's trying a new position. Perfect. So now if we want to expand his behavior at all, then all you really need to do is add some more cover locations, put a path node there, select that path node. Going into Kismet then, we have our path node object list here, or here rather, sorry. So here's our path node object list, and all you need to do is right click it and add in any objects that you have selected in the game, or in the level. And so now also, before we finish for today, I wanted to show you one last thing, and that's how to actually get an animation to work. So first, let's go ahead, and we've been working in the second floor right now. Let's go ahead and set up a new bot down in our first floor, or somewhere else in your level that's isolated from the first, so that you don't have to worry about being shot at while we test this other guy. But let's go ahead and throw in a bunker real quick. So under static meshes, so the same bunker we've been using, you can just copy and paste the one you have, or you can go ahead and drag one out to the level from the content browser. That was the s_lt_buildings_sm_bunker wall c_cur2. And closing that, we'll go ahead and rotate these guys around so that it provides more of an actual cover for the door that we're going to walk into. And I'll line these up just so. And now I'll take this path node and I'll put it over here so we can use it as a spawn point. Make sure we get it out of the static mesh. There we go. Over just a little bit more. There we go. And now with that path node selected, we'll go back to Kismet and we're going to make a new sequence here. So let's find some real estate here on our Kismet space. Right click, new object variable using path node 58. And just like last time, new action, actor factory. I'll move this out of the way. And then the actor factory here, we want it to be with the factory type. Go to create new project, or sorry, new object rather. And then we want a UT actor factory AI. And we'll go ahead and do this one. We'll create a trigger volume here in a moment. So here's our spawn point. And looking at the properties on our actor factory, also beyond just which factory to use, we also need to do the pawn class, which is UT pawn. And we'll give him a default inventory. We're not going to bother with setting up any of his scripting for fighting though. And let's see. We'll also go ahead and set up that trigger volume. So I'll close Kismet real quick. And I want it to spawn this guy as soon as I walk through this door here. So go back to our brush. So this is still up here from when we added the volume at the top of our elevator. So now we'll bring this down. Here's our brush here. We'll bring it over to the door. Position it right in front. There we go. So it's positioned right through this door, and as soon as we step in, it will spawn the guy, or step up to the door, it will spawn the guy. And having that brush right there, go to add volume, dynamic trigger volume, move our brush out of the way. You can see we've created this cube here. And with this cube selected, go back into Kismet, right-click, New Event using Dynamic Trigger Volume 2. Make that a touch. So whenever we touch it, it will spawn the actor. Get a new object variable that it will spawn. So this is the bot. And now also, we'll want this guy to perform his animation whenever he takes damage. So right-click, New Action, Event, Attach to Event, and then right-click, New Event, and Actor takes damage. And so our attachee is that bot, our event is the take damage, and whenever it spawns the guy, it needs to actually perform the attach to event. And looking at the take damage properties, we want to set this damage threshold to 0 again, just like we did last time. And we can set this to 0 for the trigger count on the take damage. You don't necessarily have to, but works for testing. So we are now ready to tell our bot to crouch whenever he takes damage. So in order to get him to crouch, let's go ahead and right-click, New Action, and then Pawn, and then Pawn Annum, as in short for animation. And we'll bring that in. The target will be the pawn, and the out will be the Pawn Annum here. Or the out from the take damage will connect to the in on the Pawn Annum. Then we must set the animation that will be called by the node, and to do that we need the name of the animation we want. And so basically UT pawns have a default skeletal mesh, the body, and a default animation set. If you open the content browser, let's go ahead and close, or we'll close Kismet for now. Go into the content browser, and let's clear our search here. And we are looking for animation sets. And make sure you're in all assets. And the one we're looking for is K_Annum. Here we are. So it's K_Annum human_base male. This is the default animation set for all humanoid characters. Now if we go ahead and double click this, it will bring up the Annum Set Editor. We don't need to go into the details of this editor, but if you go to the Annum tab here, we might spend some more time with this in the future, and you can see there's a number of different animations that it has available. And the one we are looking for is crouch_idle. Let's see, where is it? Crouch_idle riff. So you can see when you select it, it shows the position he takes here. And so this is the one we're looking for. And so that now that we know the name of the animation we want to use, go ahead and close this out. And back into our Kismet. And here we go, the Pawn Annum here. And we'll want to type that animation's name into the Annum name field in the properties for it. And so that was crouch_idle_ready_riff. And so now we should be ready to test. We'll go ahead and close Kismet here, and if you have not already, go ahead and build all. I'll pause it just a moment while that's occurring. And here I'll close these, and we'll play in the editor window. And this time we're headed to the first floor, so we'll use the door. We step in. I did not put point lights in here, so we'll go ahead and activate the light switch so you can see what's going on. And now we come in here, we open this door. There's our area here. We step in, we hit the trigger, and he spawns. We walk up, And as soon as he takes any damage, he should crouch. And there he goes. And so you can play around with some of those, how you connect that pawn Annum node in Kismet, but that's essentially how we can trigger animations. I'll hit escape to get out of here. And that's about all the time we have for now, so I'll see you next time.